This is the MMA Brief Podcast, recapping the world of mixed martial arts every single week, with your host, Brandon Johansson.
Welcome back to the MMA Brief. Previewing UFC 211 from Dallas, Texas, the heavyweight rematch between Stipe Miocic and Junior Dos Santos. Starting at the bottom of the card, there are some good fights on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, and unlike most cards, the actual pay-per-view prelims are on FX, not Fox Sports 1. The main event of the FX undercard is former lightweight champion Eddie, the Underground King Alvarez, against Dustin Poirier. There's a lot at stake for both of these guys. Eddie Alvarez, of course, getting knocked out by Conor McGregor, losing his title, and Dustin Poirier, although he returned to the octagon and defeated Jim Miller, he suffered a devastating knockout against Michael Johnson. It should be a really good setup, though, for the pay-per-view. Should get fans excited. There's a lot more eyes on FX than there would be on FS1. Usually Saturday nights on FX, there's movies or TV shows, so random eyes. The casual audience might just get sucked into watching that fight because it's got potential to be very entertaining. All of a sudden, that's the idea behind it. They go, fuck, I want to see the next fights. Buy the pay-per-view. That's the idea behind, because it's such a good fight. Why is it not on the pay-per-view? I think it's to encourage people to buy it. First fight on the pay-per-view is Henry Cejudo versus Sergio Pettis. Cejudo is looking to bounce back from his first two-fight losing streak of his MMA career. On the other hand, Pettis is on a three-fight winning streak. His last win was against former title challenger John Moraga. I'm anticipating wrestling heavy style from Henry Cejudo, who's an Olympic wrestler. And Sergio Pettis hopefully is going to try to sprawl and brawl. Pivotal matchup in the flyweight division. Frankie Edgar takes on surging featherweight Yair Rodriguez. It's an interesting stylistic matchup, partially because of what hurt Frankie in his fight against Jeremy Stephens. I was constantly watching Jeremy Stephens looking for a devastating punch. He's got huge punching power, but he actually stunned Frankie with a jumping switch kick, which is very similar to the attacks Yair Rodriguez loves to throw. So it's very interesting stylistic matchup. Frankie has gone on to said, hey, the last 20 fights, guys have been saying they're going to knock me out. Nobody's been able to do it. But Yair Rodriguez is a serious threat. Damian Maia is looking to secure a title shot against the always tough and technical Jorge Masvidal. It's an interesting matchup. Maia has been running through his opposition. His destruction of former interim champion Carlos Condit didn't even seem possible at the time. Made it look really easy against arguably the toughest 170-pound fighter in the division. Jorge feels very confident in his defensive wrestling, thinks he can keep the fight standing, batter Maia on the feet, and the winner should earn a title shot against Tyron Woodley. In the co-main event, and the first title fight of the night, Joanna Jędrzejczyk looks to defend her strawweight title successfully for the fifth time against Jessica Andrade. Andrade is on a three-fight winning streak and has looked unstoppable since moving down to 115 pounds. She was small for 135. The cut to 115 might be too much. I'm excited to see that fight. In the main event, biggest card of the year so far, UFC 211 rematch between Junior Dos Santos and Stipe Miocic. This time for the UFC heavyweight title. First fight was close, but Junior ended up edging Stipe by decision. Since that fight, Stipe is 4-0 with 4 knockouts. In the process, captured the heavyweight crown. Junior's win over Stipe, he is just 1-1, suffering a knockout loss to Alistair Overeem. Very excited to see this heavyweight clash. should be violent. Both men love to box, so it should be a fan-friendly affair. Can't wait to see it. Stipe is on a roll, and Junior Dos Santos has new life in the heavyweight division after suffering 2 defeats to Cain Velasquez. He now has a chance to become the heavyweight champion again. Alistair Overeem versus Fabricio Verdum was just announced. Junior beat Fabricio. Junior got knocked out by Alistair, so the winner of that, if he could win the heavyweight title, they would be the next challenger, possibly. So either matchup is very interesting. Somehow Junior Dos Santos, even though he's only gone 1-1, has a chance to be the quote-unquote baddest man on the planet. All right, so I'm going to do a little segue here. I am very lucky to be joined by my former podcast partner, longtime friend, and B Plus Podcast.
Didn't we always used to say something when we started it?
Back up in that ass.
Yeah, oh yeah. Why don't you just do that?
I'll just redo that. B Plus Podcast, back up in that ass.
Okay, you can do that again, but you don't have to get close to the microphone anymore.
I'm going to get super close and passionate.
Then you're just gonna
Okay,
destroy
sorry.
this.
Stop
All right.
Alex Jonesing it.
All right.
Stay where you are.
All right. B Plus Podcast, back up in that ass. For like the 62 and a half time.
Was it that many?
62 we ripped off.
I remember 50, but that was about it. It's been a long time. It's been 2 years. So,
Not quite 2 years.
almost.
1 year and like 8 months, but who's counting?
I think you might be. I don't know.
Anyway, I'm very happy to be joined by my former podcast partner, Tyler. What's going on, man? Haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, started a solo career, been doing pretty good. A lot of book deals, movies, whatnot. No, just moved back from Traverse City on summer
TC.
from college.
Cherry capital of the world. Not just the United States, the fucking world.
Capital of the most retarded liberal people you'll ever meet in your fucking life, too. Every other fucking weekend's a protest where they block traffic for some bullshit that no one cares about.
Well, I'm glad we're not a family show, because Tyler would have ruined that already. But you're moved back to the area. You gonna be around a little bit more?
Yeah, I'll be here for a while. I'm probably just gonna commute to college. It's really expensive to live in Traverse City. I lived in Section 8 housing and it was like almost $1,000 a month.
Living in the projects,
Yeah.
living in the projects, living in the projects. Houses broke with no lights on.
I had lights on, but
Is it too
I had a lot of ghetto kids running around. They'd play with garbage they found in the dumpsters because their parents couldn't buy them toys. Like they'd have bleach bottles they'd fill with sand or look like used napkins, food wrappers, stuff like that. They'd build things out of them in the sand. Kind of weird.
Sounds like a place you want to avoid.
Yeah.
But you're going to school down there, and you're gonna live around here. So maybe you'd be fucking around with me and Andrew. You heard it here. The return of the B Plus Podcast officially next week.
B Plus Podcast, you fucks.
Anyway, we're doing a little sampler return of B Plus this week on MMA Brief. Next week, Real Deal B Plus returns. Tyler, I know you got a lot to talk about.
Right now? Or next week?
In general.
Oh,
like,
okay. Yeah.
I believe that we had a good 62 episode run with the old B Plus Podcast. I don't know if people knew that, but we used to be rocking it for years.
About 2 years. Yeah.
Took some time off, and B Plus shall return next week in its own separate format.
With Mario and the original theme song because I can't be bothered to remake it and I have all the original files.
That was a Game Boy notification. But point being, thank you so much for listening to the MMA Brief with special guest Tyler Burrows. How you feeling, brother?
Good.
He's back. I got my main man, Andrew, motherfucking genius behind the scenes, I got my other brother, Tyler. So thank you for listening. Come back next week. We're going to be recapping all the fights from Saturday, the heavyweight rematch between Stipe Miocic and Junior Dos Santos. Jessica Andrade against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Jorge Masvidal, Damian Maia. Frankie Edgar, Yair Rodriguez. Sergio Pettis, Henry Cejudo, Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. It's going to be an amazing night of fights. I'm hoping I can get these clowns to actually watch with me. I don't know if that's possible. It's going to be a big pay-per-view. It's the biggest one the UFC's done all year. So come back next week. We're going to recap the whole thing. Peace.